nagging fear someone else is pulling out the strings. Something terrible is going.
So there's a lot of confusion going around with all this fake news nowadays. And apparently we're all left misinformed. And depending on who you're talking to, you could be labeled as a sheep. So with all this fake news all around us, everybody's trying to find the truth, the actual reality, to become one with enlightenment. Well, if one does stumble upon that reality and come to a sense of dedicating their life to pursuing social justice, which is the true virtue according to a certain ideology, well, there's a name for that. It is what is known as being woke. So what does it mean to actually be woke? Well, the best woke definition I can come up with is when one is conscious of the truth, a heightened sense beyond one's peers, an awakened realization of the true process that the man doesn't want you to know about. And what do I mean when I say the man? Well, the context of the man is a figure of speech. You can think of the man as the master, the elite, the guy that everyone knows but truly no one really knows. The person responsible for all the oppression and the reason why people can't make it in life. He's always one step ahead of the public and controls everyone without them even knowing it, or as a matter of fact, they do know it, but they can't stop it. He created this system, the very thing that we're all subjugated to, and that people are in constant fight to get rid of. But now, back to wokeness. Now, on paper, woke sounds like a good thing. We all want to be woke, right? No one wants to be lied to. But the problem is, the idea of woke today is all kinds of messed up. And it's causing all kinds of problems. Problems that really didn't even exist to start with. It's infiltrated into literally everything we do. Like everything is political. We got riots, mass protests in the streets, all kinds of division, so many us versus them communities, and all this sense of entitlements. And sometimes, as a result, we even got full-scale violence. So where did all this wokeness even come from? Matter of fact, since when did woke even become political? Well, to answer that, we gotta go back in time. So technically speaking, the word woke made its first appearance in the Stay Woke Ball in the 1920s. It was an event that took place in Harlem from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Though woke back then didn't have any positive or negative connotations to it. It was just a simple name at the time. Woke really didn't get its notoriety until like the 1960s, the civil rights era. So fast forwarding, the word woke actually gets its first true mention in an essay called If You Woke, You Dig It, published in 1962 by a man named William Melvin Kelly. One writer summed it up like this. It tells about the black slang and its invention and reinvention in retaliation to its appropriation by white people. Now what the hell does that mean in English? Well, the article was about black slang that was well known in the black community during racial segregation and the uprising of civil rights. Back then you can easily distinguish those words as slang because not many other races used it. And those who try to use it, in Melvin's sense, the white people, the white folks don't really understand how to use the language or the slang properly, which gives the article its title, If You Woke, You Dig It, meaning if you're a part of the culture, you understand the language. Now you gotta remember, this was written during the time of Jim Crow. The polarization between black and white was quite sharp. The color of your skin held some weight, because at the time the power dynamic was well defined. There were laws specifically stating and enforcing racial segregation and discrimination. People of color were given lesser things and a lesser quality of life. That equal but separate clause wasn't really equal. And after the death of Emmett Till and the severe beating his body took, it was an open casket funeral, and how his case was handled in the end sparked the civil rights movement. Because in this dire time, the motion of the civil rights is a prime example of what we can consider woke activism. For example, let's take two iconic figures, Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. Now obviously there are many more activists that fit the profile, but I'm just going to keep it simple and just stick with two. So first, Martin Luther King and his followers are considered woke because they recognize the oppression and inequality in society. They stood against a system that told them they cannot have equal rights, and engaged in monumental movements that secured equality for them and the future generations for all races.
So just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around.
Rosa Parks was considered woke because she refused to let skin color deem her as a second-class citizen, and refused to give up her seat to a white man who, as society deemed, was a higher status, thus was entitled to sit in the front.
Once we take a seat, even in under segregation conditions, that we should be made to stand up in a crowded bus.
So overall, being woke was a concept spawned from the black community. It meant the alertness of social injustice, and at the time, the social justice that needed addressing was aimed towards racial inequality. A person who is woke meant that one understood that there is an unnecessary unequal distribution in an aspect of life, and in this case, basic human rights, such as voting, public education, a fair trial, etc., etc. And despite the constant propaganda and the systematic silence, the civil rights movement is a model example of that exact force that stood against a government system that was in place imposing racism and segregation. A true rise for true social justice, sticking it to the man we now know as the system. Now let's fast forward to 2008, and there we'll have another mention of the term in a song called Master Teachers by Erykah Badu.
What if there was no niggas, only master teachers? I stay woke.
In her song, she talks about how she dreams of a world where there are no niggas, only master teachers, and immediately follows up with, I stay woke. Now, some people may not know, but the term nigga is a spinoff word for the R word, nigger. And nigga is supposed to be less offensive. That is, it's okay for some people to use it.
Understand it. And I'm trying to understand it. I need help. Yes, I use nigga. I've used it. I admit it. I put the H on it to emphasize it's nigga. That, you know, nigga this, nigga please, nigga, you know, can you lend a nigga a pencil?
So you see, nowadays, nigga is used in all kinds of ways. Like, it can mean friend, depending on who's saying it. It can mean deadbeat, no good, no nothing, do nothing, sad excuse of a man. Or say it to the wrong person, and it could mean an ass whooping.
What's up, my nigga? What did you just say? What's up, my nigga?
But see, in the song, it's quite vague. She refers to the nigga as, I'm assuming, her ignorant self, and the master teacher is her desired self that she's searching for, but she can never truly gain that true self, so she stays woke, meaning as she stays hopeful. Interesting way to put it, I guess. Okay, so now we're starting to approach the modern times, and it's in the modern times that the idea of woke completely flips on its head. I mean, you remember the whole incident with Trayvon Martin, and then later Michael Brown, and the whole hashtag Black Lives Matter popped up, and later turned to a movement? Well, after that, the whole idea of wokeness was everywhere, and if you weren't woke, you were dumb and a racist, even if you were black. And the whole idea of woke was so prominent that it actually spawned other problems, like gender issues, religious issues, class issues, you name it, it's there. Like, it's almost as if oppression is glorified. Like, if you're oppressed, you're amongst the people. You're the underdog. Like, there are so many self-proclaimed oppressed communities out there that demand you feel bad because you're oppressing them. And yet, at the same time, these oppressed communities are all out here asking for the government to pay reparations for them or take action against someone else. They all involve the government to do something for them. The very people that hate the government is at the same time asking for their help. I don't understand it. So the whole idea of woke now is composed of a completely different meaning than it did back in the 1960s. Like, the idea of woke now is more of that of Marxism, and it reflects heavily on the social conflict theory, where almost every aspect of a society is in some sort of conflict. And since wokeness has morphed itself into a woke culture, we got a whole ass breeding ground of conflict. Like, in every single issue we got a problem, and they even got labels. Like, with race, it's white privilege and cops. With gender, it's the patriarchy. With LGBT, we got all kinds of phobias. With religion, somehow it's Christianity. I'm not sure why it's Christianity, but somehow the Christian God is a no-no. Literally any other God is considered acceptable, even the flying spaghetti monster. Yeah, I don't get it either. But for real though, Marxism is not a good thing to have. It creates an us versus them binary. And for some reason, the government is almost always involved in all these conflicts in some way. And apparently the only way these conflicts can truly be resolved is through social justice. Hence why we have all these social justice warriors running around. Or more so like marching and screaming.
Fuck the patriarchy. Fuck Donald Trump. Fuck Mike Pence. Fuck white supremacy. Fuck racism. Fuck misogyny. Fuck homophobia. Fuck transphobia. Fuck capitalism. Fuck classism. Fuck transphobia. Fuck ableism. Fuck Islamophobia. Fuck anti-Semitism. Fuck every kind of bigotry out there. I'm here in front of the White House. I am not here for polite protest because patriarchy is not polite.
And I mean, it's only gotten worse from there. The whole woke ideology is in the mainstream media. It's in politics. It's even in our food. Like, many companies have bought into this whole woke trend. Like, you ever heard of the term go woke, go broke? Well, it ain't a joke. And I mean, Gillette is the perfect example for this. They are infamous for their whole toxic masculinity ad. Now, granted, Gillette's products were almost exclusively male. And when they decided to get political and tackle a political topic, they ended up insulting their entire customer base. And they didn't even care. Apparently, it was worth it. The message was more important than the money. I mean, it just goes to show you the lengths people take to prove a point. And you know, to be honest, having woke messages shoved down your throat like that is not helping the cause at all. I mean, whatever that is. I mean, like I said, it's Marxism. It only promotes political paranoia and anger towards anybody that's not woke. Because if they're not woke, apparently they're a part of the problem. They don't think like the left, because let's be honest here. Woke has been made as a cheap buzzword for the left. They are subliminally perpetuating the man and are allies to the system. So with all this being said, here's one thing I just cannot wrap my head around. If the people are trying to resist the system, why the hell is the media one of the main players encouraging it? Because like I said, most of this wokeness comes from politics and the media. And yeah, you can argue freedom of expression, but if that's the case, why do almost all universities are liberal tanks? And pretty much anyone saying anything that's contradicting the resistance is basically silenced, deplatformed, or even utterly disrespected on stage. I mean, the whole point of a resistance is to resist the oppressor and eventually defeat them, right? But if you're having a government and major corporations funding millions of dollars into advertisements, organizations, programs, and even whole majors and universities, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's all sunshine and rainbows. I know without a doubt that there's some shady shit going on behind the scenes. But when the system is exposing itself by telling you how to kick its own ass, you know, it kind of raises some red flags there. But see, here's the kicker though. The system ain't that dumb. I mean, do you think it's a good idea to piss off an entire population? No. There's a strength in numbers. And what do you do with big numbers? You divide them. And those smaller numbers are known as intersections through the concept called intersectionality. Stay tuned.